everybody. Welcome to Dattitude. It is Friday, episode number 204, and we're going to have a lot of fun this morning with my friend Larry Holder. We're going to write the post-mortem on the Saints, and hopefully this will be the last time we talk about 2023. It probably won't be, but we're going to do it anyway here, and then we're going to spend about at least half the show talking about our predictions for the NFC and AFC wildcard games this weekend. Super wildcard weekend. What is going on, Larry Holder?
I guarantee you this won't be the last time we talk about the 2023 season. Like, I could have cut you off right there, but I was going to let you go. And I will say, luckily for me, in the position that I'm in and the job that I have now, I don't have to talk and write about the Saints every day because I have certainly paid attention to the chatter and anger and everything that's happened over the last several days, stemming back to what happened toward the end of last game and the aftermath and everything. So it's been entertaining, but I'm glad I don't necessarily have to jump into the fray, I guess, until now, right? I guess I got to
You
now.
do still live in New Orleans. You still got to listen to it. So, it's funny because as we were going out there and Bayou Bets yesterday and we were giving our final thoughts, and I was talking about Dattitude this morning. I was talking about how, you're going to come on and you don't write about the Saints anymore, but you said exactly what I said you would say. I don't cover them anymore, but I still got to deal with the crap.
Well, here's the thing. Like, if this probably, I'll just put it on a national level. If we haven't had like the week of, historically great coaches either be fired or stepped away,
Lordy.
this would probably have been a bigger story nationally. I know it's gotten some play for sure. But this week has been chaotic with all the coaching changes across not just the NFL, obviously with Nick Saban too. So, but yeah, I do think though that, man, it's something that you can't escape for sure, given where I live, and it's certainly though. I'm not going to say I see both sides because I do feel like, well, we're going to get into it. Like, there's a side where you can look at it on the surface and say, well, there's an improvement. But of course, you and me have talked about it. We didn't care how the record was, that something throughout the season has been off.
Right.
And now you see it, and now you know it. And so where do you go from here? And it's, I know where the fans are, so and they're not on the same page as what's going on within the organization.
No, and we're going to get right into that in just a minute. I will invite anyone out there. We'll be on the air for about 35, 40 minutes. If you would like to leave a comment or question wherever you're watching, YouTube, Facebook, or X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, you would type in your comment. It'll show up here on my screen, and then I will then show it on the air, and we'll talk about it here live. As we have, Mark's just jumping kind of right into things here. He's asking if Ben Roethlisberger, Ray Lewis, Deshaun Watson, Jameis Winston get second chances, why can't John Gruden? We haven't got that far, Mark. Give us a chance. And then what are the chances that Bill Belichick, Nick Saban, Pete Carroll, all Croatian American? I don't understand that at all. Maybe, Mark, I'm assuming you're a Croatian American, Satanovic. We've spent a lot of time at Drago, so are they Croatian? Are you Croatian, Mark? I don't even know. But anyway, if you want to ask a question or leave a comment, feel free. We'll show it on the screen. All right, I got to ask you, Larry. Here's the thing, and I've talked about this all week long, and this is the crux of the whole issue for me. When it comes down to Dennis Allen, I was actually all for Dennis Allen coming back next year. The reason being is, look, I think next year is going to be a mess. We've talked about this before. There's $75 million over the cap. At some point, you got to stop kicking the can. I think this is the stop kicking the can moment. Okay, I think this team needs to kind of rebuild from the floor up. That being said, he lost me when he seemed to prove that he doesn't have control over this locker room, or at least doesn't have respect in the locker room. When your team, and you can blame Jameis Winston all you want, it was 11 guys that did what they did on that last play there. So whether you agree with them scoring on the touchdown or not agreeing with them scoring on the touchdown, it doesn't really matter. To me, it's a symbol of this locker room is lost. They don't care about Dennis Allen. They don't want to listen to Dennis Allen. And Mickey Loomis can go in there all he wants and say, let's play nice. We're going to change things next year. That didn't change a damn thing. Once you've lost the locker room, you've kind of lost the team.
Well, it goes back to when I was covering the team back when kind of through the 14 through 16 seasons where like there was a definitely a shift in culture and part of it actually involved Dennis Allen actually helping the culture return when he got back on the defensive side of the football. But and that was on the verge of Sean Payton one more season, and if it was mediocre, I mean, he was going to be gone. It was probably going to be one of those mutual partings
Right.
of ways. So you're basically there now, but I think. And it all goes back to look, Dennis Allen is succeeding the greatest coach in Saints history.
That's true.
And it's look, and Sean Payton was one way, Dennis Allen is another. And I think the players who were there, even younger players, like they follow suit. Like as some of these players are acting, the younger players who weren't around for Sean Payton, they're following suit. And I don't care if you have Cam Jordan and Demario Davis trying to make sure the players study film. I mean, like the fact that you have to do that, that's and they feel like they don't have to do it. It's an indictment on the staff. I mean, that's the thing. It's like, and I'll harken back to what Sean Payton would say. He's a teacher, and teachers have to kind of instill good habits and things like that. And if that's not happening from the teachers part of this, even though the students are paid more than the teachers well, a few of them are, not all of them, but still, it's an indictment on the staff. I don't think there's any doubt about that. You and me have known this. We've known this throughout the whole season. Like you could see it on the field, and you could see the reactions in the locker room, and you could see it. And so
So how do
that's
you go forward, though, Larry? With what you said there, I agree 100% with what you say. So how does this team go forward with a guy that I mean, I get he's not Sean Payton. He's not supposed to be. And nobody is. Nobody's Drew Brees. Derek Carr's not Drew Brees. We understand that. But how do you go forward now with what you just said and this team that seems lost and they don't want to play for this guy, or at least they haven't?
a typical coach would have been fired in a typical organization. Like that's how that would have worked. I mean, this is not the norm like that we're going on here. Like that it's not this isn't. And I think part of it is that the Saints know that they have to ride with a lot of what they have still in the locker room. I think that's part of it too. Like what you have the same like the core of the team. It's not like it's going to change a ton,
Can't.
and yeah, it can't. Like so, that's where you are, and so you got to fix that ship, or next year it's going to be really bad, and then that's and you're anticipating really bad. Look, I don't anticipate them winning 9 games next year. Like I just don't.
No. You can look at the opponents on the bottom of the screen, and I get, one of the things that Jeff Duncan was pointing out earlier in the week was, the opponent's winning percentage is bad again. It's 45.3%. That being said, the reason why it's so low is because if you take Carolina twice off of there and Washington off of there, it's a completely different story. Even New York to some extent. This schedule's, you can look at it, it's clearly harder than it was this year. Like, much harder, I think.
Well, look at the divisions you're playing. I mean, you're playing the the AFC East. I mean, yeah, the NFC East and the
NFC
AFC
East,
West.
right,
Yeah,
right.
and so with that, I mean, it's inherently going to be harder. Like the Chargers are going to be better than they were last
Of
year, like this
course.
past year. Look, the
The Packers
Broncos,
on their way up. The
right,
Chiefs and playing the Chiefs and the Cowboys on the road. I mean, come on.
and the Eagles. I mean,
Yeah.
look, it's the schedule's tougher. I mean, this was the year they blew it. They underachieved. That's the thing. Like they underachieved. Like that would be, even if there was no problems in the locker room, you
Right.
still underachieved. Like that would be grounds for in a lot of organizations to be fired. I mean that's just what it is,
Well,
and
I
so
mean,
that's the thing. And I think Saints fans, actually, I know they're extremely frustrated that this is the way that this organization's run. That Impulsive left the building once Sean Payton left the building. Now it's more conservative now than ever in terms of what they're doing in making moves, making changes, and all those other things.
Taylor asks, when does the media start looking at Mickey Loomis? His comments of the last few months scream incompetence and delusion, and ultimately the coaching staff and player personnel falling on his shoulders.
Let me answer that.
I agree with part of it. Go ahead, Larry, but I don't agree with the
The
crux
media
of it.
can look at Mickey Loomis however they want. They could say fire Mickey Loomis over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. It doesn't matter.
That's what I've
Mickey
been saying.
Loomis, I can tell you this. This goes back to when I was with the Times-Picayune. I interviewed Tom Benson at the Greenbrier. I had like a 45-minute sit down with Tom Benson, and he was telling stories left and right. And I asked him a simple question. I said, "What's the most important move you ever made in your time being the Saints owner?" It was immediate. Hire Mickey Loomis. Mickey Loomis is going. It will never be gone unless he wants to step away.
Which
That's
probably
it.
at some point, and he kind of hinted that he was on the show about a little over a year ago, and he sort of hinted that it's not going to last forever, and it's not even going to last all that much longer. I don't think so. I don't think Mickey Loomis will. I actually think Mickey's earned the right to stay as long as he wants. That's my opinion. I do. I mean, I can understand why some people wouldn't, but that being said, I just don't think he's going to stick around that much longer. He's not going to want to be around for this complete overhaul. People can say whatever they want. This team has a complete overhaul in their very near future, whether fans like it or not, and they've already should have done it already. And I just don't think that a 65 or however old Loomis is going to want to stick around to do that.
Well, he's going to be part of the organization. Like he could be there forever.
Sure.
Like he's part of the succession plan. If things would happen, like that's the thing. Like it doesn't matter what we say.
He may want to retire and go sit on a boat somewhere.
There's no doubt. Like he will leave on his own terms. Like that's where it's going to be. So I mean, that's why you know people. I get it, and they come after wires in the media harder. We could say fire him, fire him, fire him, fire him, fire him. They're not going to listen to us. Like it doesn't matter. Like that person in that job, it's not going to matter. And look, if you look at the overall scope of what he's done, I mean, it's the most successful we've ever seen
Without question.
organization. But obviously, this is a bad stretch. There's no doubt about it.
Jim Finks.
Yeah. Oh, certainly more successful than Jim Finks. And Jim Finks is, look, known as one of the smarter people in the NFL, like in his time and now. So yeah, like that's just the thing. Like, is the job not satisfactory right now? Yes, but okay, you have what you have, and you at this point in time, you hope they can right the ship in terms of that part of the organization. That's just what it is.
Dustin says, and that's why it feels like they don't care about the fans. Your money makers in the dome. I get that. I completely understand that. And you know what? I got to be honest, Dustin. I don't think they care about you. I really don't. I mean, I know that sounds stupid. It'd be like, McDonald's saying, "Here's your Happy Meal. I don't care if your kids don't like, this piece of chalk that's in it as their gift. We're not changing it." I mean, that's really kind of what it is. They don't care, I don't think.
They care about the product. They want to be a winner. I can tell you that.
They care about the product.
They want to be a winner.
I don't think they care about Joe Blow who comes and watches the product.
They want to be a winner, but they also look at it differently than a fan does. And some fans want to play fantasy football, and a lot of fans want to play fantasy football. Like everybody wants to be fired every year. Like that, obviously that's not the recipe for success, but still, like when you look at it in the way they're looking at it, I know this is the way they're looking at it. They improved. Their 9 wins, almost made the playoffs. And yet they are tied to what they have for the very much most part of their roster. So they have to right the ship, to me, at least for this year, before they can overhaul anything. Like that's where they are.
What would we be talking about on this show today had Tampa Bay lost to Carolina and the Saints won the division and we're hosting the Eagles? Would we still feel the same way and be talking the same way if the Saints were going to the playoffs this weekend?
Probably not, which is what's crazy because Tampa almost lost and they looked bad the last 2 weeks. Like they don't even deserve to be in the playoffs.
100% agree.
So it's like the Saints in the backstretch, they actually deserve to be in, which is wild. And so here's the thing. They played 2 of their better games with this perceived strife going on.
It just
So
goes to show you how good they could have been, Larry. That's probably what pisses me off more than anything. It shows how good they could have been because, I had people write me and tweet at me and send me emails about like people actually were defending the status quo and saying that, you know, this how can this team have lost the locker room like you say if they won 4 of their last 5 games? That doesn't mean jack crap to me because they won 4 of their last 5 games. They haven't they didn't play anybody until they actually played Tampa Bay and Atlanta, and you could argue that's not playing anybody either. And so they lost to the one team in that stretch that's in the playoffs, and that's the Rams. I don't count the Bucks because they won by default. So, and the teams they lost to the Rams, they lost by 8, but they should have lost by 20. So, I mean, I don't think I would have feel any different. I would still say Dennis Allen needs to get fired. Even if, I mean, to me, if you lose the locker room, I don't care if you go to the playoffs or not. You can't go forward.
if you look at it from where they're coming from, all right, say difference between playoffs or not. I mean, like that's and you look at next year, and I'm sure the Saints are looking at this next year. Okay, which teams in the NFC South are going to be that much better than what they are now? Carolina might not be 2-win Carolina, but they might be 6-win Carolina. I mean, they're having a new coach. They have bigger problems than the Saints have. Tampa, look, they could stick with Baker Mayfield, and they're going to be losing Mike Evans more than likely. He'll probably go to a winner to try to round out the end of his career. And then it's not like they were great. Atlanta, I mean, Bill Belichick could be their next coach, but can he turn that around immediately? Obviously, they will go get a new quarterback somewhere, somehow. They could trade up to number 1. They could go get a veteran. That's apparent. They're going to get at least in their minds, a bona fide quarterback. So maybe they could be a little bit better. But still, the Saints probably walk into that division. If you say right now, would the Saints be the favorite to win that division next year? Like today, current state, you'd probably say yes. And that's probably
I'm not going to make them the favorite. I won't.
I'm just saying right this second. We haven't seen what's happened in the offseason, moves. We could think differently now. But in terms of where they are, each team as they stand now, the Saints – but that's also the most frustrating part about it, like you said, because they underachieved this year. I totally agree. Underachieved.
I will be betting whatever the under win total is. I promise you, I will be I'm not going to be fooled again. I will not be fooled by this fake organization right now because that's what they are. And you keep throwing the things that you keep throwing out there, and you're a fake organization, in my opinion. Niquinta says, stay tuned for more dysfunction. No doubt about it. It is definitely coming up on the horizon. Look, the personnel decisions that Loomis made. Now, some of these you're comparing apples to oranges. Penning, I get. Stinks. Stephon Anthony. You can't say drafting Davenport over Lamar Jackson. The Saints didn't need a quarterback. I mean, Drew Brees wasn't going anywhere anytime soon when Lamar Jackson was drafted. So, I mean, that's not really fair. But you're
why don't
right
you
about
list
some
the
of these
hits?
other things.
Like list the hits that made them successful.
Alvin Kamara, which was the year before Lamar Jackson. Like I think they did okay with that one.
Lattimore. I mean, obviously exactly. Hendrickson's a great player. He played well and then left, but that's Marcus Williams is a good player. Now you can't pick one and the other. Like you need to balance it out. And the record shows it for itself. Like I don't know.
You can't go back that far. That to me, that's not fair. All right, Mark, you've been asking about Trevor Penning for like a month now, so I'm going to show this comment and I'll see what Larry thinks. Was he a reach pick, still talented, no coaching, lacking in skill set to play in the NFL? I'm going to let Larry answer, but I'm going to answer first and give my opinion. Trevor Penning, and I hope he doesn't hear this because he might come and beat me up if he hears me say this, because I think that's the only thing he's probably good at. Trevor Penning is a bum. He's if you watched him play, he's never going to be a starting lineman in this league. That was a wasted pick, in my opinion. But that being said, I liked it when they drafted him. I thought it was a good pick when they drafted him. You should be able to see this if you're the scouting department of the New Orleans Saints that it wasn't, but they swung and missed on that one, in my opinion. Larry, what's yours?
The Saints were the only ones who liked him. That's the thing.
True.
Like that's the thing. Like I think what he was able to do against inferior competition in college. And what he did at the Senior Bowl, I think that convinced NFL teams that he could do it. I mean, like and sometimes those are misses, and he gets up against the big boys and flounders. And then it's like, I'll do another example where you have a guy who has good measurables, does well against inferior competition, shows off at the combine, shows off in workouts, and injuries aside, maybe you see where I'm going at. Teron Armstead should have been like a first round pick, like so at a left tackle, and he's deservedly a Pro Bowl caliber player, but injuries have been his biggest issue. But still, like that, if you flip flopped him, okay, like that's the thing. Like sometimes you get it right and sometimes you don't. I mean, they didn't get it right. I mean, that's just it. I just don't think I agree with you. I don't think he's a starting caliber lineman, and sometimes that happens. I mean, and you don't like that. That's a miss. I mean, there's nothing you can say about it.
Miss.
Like someone else in the draft would have taken him in the first round too, and they would have missed. So I just think it was a misdiagnosis of a prospect through many organizations.
I will say this about the team though, and I'll give them credit for this. They at least they weren't stubborn, and we said this in the beginning of the year. I thought they were going to be stubborn and just stick him out there and let Derek Carr get killed. So at least when Andrus Peat was healthy enough, they put Andrus Peat in there at left tackle, which he's not even a tackle, and I thought he did a pretty good job. So all you Andrus Peat bashers out there, I actually thought, barring, he missed probably 5 or 6 games, but overall, I thought Andrus Peat might have had his best season as a Saint. I thought he played outstanding. In
a pinch, he did better than you thought, and that's
way better.
Because the expectations were very low, obviously, but still, in a pinch, you did well. He did well enough, but it's just something that that's the most impulsive move they've made all year.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it was the right one,
right?
But what's sad, and as we stay on the offensive line, we can't talk about the Saints much longer because we're going to move on to the playoffs part of this thing.
I don't have carpool or early dismissal, so we can go. We can go.
I will say this. Just remember how long ago, it wasn't that long ago, when the Saints had a top 5 offensive line. I mean, one thing when you have a Drew Brees is you make sure you're going to protect his butt. He's not going to get blindsided. Drew Brees didn't get sacked. So you can hate Derek Carr all you want, but when you got basically, by most accounts, I know The Athletic and Pro Football Focus are both somewhere around the range of anywhere from 26th to 30th, depending on how you look, where you look, ranking-wise. So to drop that far, that fast, for this team not to address, to me, besides quarterback, the most important spot on the field is a major problem.
Drew also helped his offensive line by being one of the fastest person to get rid of the football in the league habitually. So that covered up, even when the Saints had question marks along that offensive line, he didn't get as many sacks because he got rid of the football quickly. Derek Carr, at times he holds it too long and should be getting rid of the football. He's not slow. Like Derek Carr isn't like super slow, but he's not the fastest like some other guys. So, look, 0.3 seconds on average can get you sacked a lot more if you got rid of the ball 0.3 seconds quicker on average. Like that's just what the numbers are, and it's true. But obviously the Saints offensive line, a lot of the guys that they had, like even when, Drew Brees was still there, like it wasn't like the offensive line was bad. I think part of it is that you have regressed in talent. And then at quarterback, I mean, let's look at the guys who have played quarterback the last couple of years. Again, they're not getting the ball out as quickly as Drew Brees. The skill position players aren't quite the same either. Like you've had a regression all over the map. And
it bothers me, though, that they give Derek Carr such grief. He's basically the 12th highest paid quarterback in the league. And guess where he was rating-wise among a lot of ratings? 12th.
Oh, so he's middle of the road, right.
He did basically exactly what he was supposed to do.
You gave him mid-tier quarterback pay. That's the going rate. Sorry, people.
Right,
That is the rate for a veteran. That's too bad. It doesn't matter. Trust me, you hear it all the time.
Would have been better off for Andy Dalton.
$60 million for Derek Carr. I'm like, that is the rate.
Right, exactly.
Daniel Jones got paid something like that, and he's not middle tier. He's lower tier.
He got paid more than that, actually.
Right. So it's just like, that is the rate. Get over it. Like you only get lucky if you're Brock Purdy
Yeah.
Like you find a diamond in the rough all of a sudden, and you don't have to pay him for a couple of years, and you build
Right.
around him. Same thing happened with Russell Wilson in Seattle. Once they had to pay
Woo.
Russell Wilson, they weren't getting the Super Bowls anymore, and this, that, and the other. Like that is the
You think
going.
Denver has buyer's remorse? There's no question about it.
Oh,
They're going to eat a lot of that cap and just we got 2 Dustin comments. Dustin Brown says watch Daniels will be there when the Saints are up for the draft. First of all, Jaden Daniels will not be there at 14. There's about a 0.2% chance that Jaden Daniels would have to do really something dumb in the offseason for him to be there at 14 when the Saints draft. And if the Saints don't draft an offensive line, I'm just going to lose my I mean, frankly, for a lack of a better term, I'm just going to lose my shit. That's what's going to happen. If the Saints don't draft an offensive lineman with their first pick in the draft, I'm going to go insanely crazy, and Larry won't want to talk to me.
there should be viable linemen who play for viable programs,
Absolutely.
who have played against viable competition.
You mean SEC offensive lineman, Big Ten offensive lineman,
right?
those guys?
You will have that.
Somebody like that.
You will have that there when they draft.
So let's go further. If they don't draft an offensive lineman that's either from the SEC or the Big Ten, I'm probably going to go insane. So there you go. Dustin McCann says, let's talk culture. I mean, Dustin, that's what we've been talking about most of the morning. So I think that's where we are. And I think it is the culture. And you lose a Sean Payton. And look, I get it. You kind of, especially when it happened the way that it happened, obviously Sean took this team by surprise. Okay. They weren't ready for this. And so it's their fault to me that they just said, well, let's stay. It's kind of what the Patriots are doing right now. And I have some Patriots friends who are really upset that Jared Mayo is going to be Gerard Mayo is going to be the coach of the New England Patriots. A lot of people are upset. But I think they're trying to stay the status quo with the Belichickian era, right? The Saints tried to do the same thing. But at some point you say, it doesn't work.
Well, we don't know if it's not going to work for New England. But, yeah, that was writing on the wall. Doesn't matter what was going to happen with Mike Vrabel. None of that was going to matter. Like, Jared Mayo was the guy. That
Obviously, they hired him right away.
Right. That was known. People – it's funny because, people who say we're reporting on the team, sometimes you run with stuff and sometimes you don't. It's like, all right, well, you know it, but you're not writing it yet.
Right.
But that was what it was. Like, I could tell you, we had it prepped in our Bill Belichick file for like weeks. Like Jared Mayo, maybe Mike Vrabel, but it's going to be Mayo. Like, so that was going to happen. Like, but that's the same thing what the Saints had.
It was Dennis Allen from the get-go.
Right. And that's the thing, though. Say they win one more game and they would have been 10-7, then you probably would have said it worked because they would have. Because here's the thing: if one of those wins would have come against a team that was probably in the playoffs and like they would actually played better and that sort of thing, and so it probably would have had a little bit different. But that's how shows you how razor thin it is, and also in the locker room, it shows you how razor thin it is. Like this team's good enough. There obviously is not. There's a disconnect. They don't have the ultimate respect of their coach and feel like they don't have to do everything that's being asked of them. And they still won 9 games. Like, imagine if you had a coach that they respected, maybe they would have won 11.
And look, going forward, as we get past this, and I asked, I'm semi-joking when I say, why would how long are we going to talk about 2023? We're going to put it in the past, but I am going to move on. I mean, my thoughts have been known. I mean, you can't. I was joking with my friend from down the street as we were bringing our daughters to the bus stop this morning. I mean, you can't beat a dead horse, or as I joked yesterday, you can only chop dead wood for so long. And so I've made my feelings known on Dennis Allen. I think everyone who listens to this show on a regular basis knows how I feel. It'll come up at different points, but at some point you got to start talking about the future. And I think, Larry's going to be here at least through the playoffs here, and I'm sure we will talk about the Saints, but I think it's going to be after this show. I think you got to start talking more about the future, right? I mean, you can't just keep.
The future could easily include coaching staff changes, and I know a question was brought up about John Gruden.
Right.
I mean, that I would figure that would happen. I mean, he's got to kind of be able to dip his toe a little bit to kind of get his way back in to the NFL. So that wouldn't shock me at all. But here's what's funny: when I saw what Jeff was reporting, of course, Jeff Duncan, and I was thinking, man, is Dennis bringing on his replacement? just like Sean brought on Rob Ryan's replacement that Dennis was at. Is Dennis bringing in his replacement?
I think
Like that,
there's
I'm
a
curious.
decent chance of that.
Right.
Because really the Saints are beat to their own drum, as we've seen. I don't think they would care what anybody thinks about. I'm not saying what I think. I'm just telling you, and I'm kind of staying away from this because I don't. I'm not getting into the outside effects of John Gruden, whether it would be a good hire. If he ever gets hired, we'll talk about it then. But I'm just telling you that I don't think the Saints care about that kind of stuff. I think if they think he's the best hire and fit, and he does come on in an assistant capacity and an assistant, however you call it, an advisory position, which let's face it, if he comes on, he's probably going to be calling the plays. And Pete Carmichael might stay on and name, which why he still has a job. That's a whole different story. But if, like you said, if it goes south again next year, like I think you and I both think is going to happen, would they consider John Gruden as a head coach if he had already been on the staff for a year? I mean, that's interesting.
But that's another thing where you talk about locker room culture with a locker room buy into John because of all his past transgressions that are now in a lawsuit that are coming out.
Probably.
I mean, I would, that's a tough thing for someone to overcome because John screwed up. I mean, my God, like you can't, like that's, some of the things he's saying, you're spitting in the face of people. Like that's,
you
can't.
That's why I can't get into that part of it. We don't have a long enough show to get into that part of it, and I'm not really ready to get into that part.
And look, that's the thing. It would have to come down to, and I don't even know how you do this. Like, you have to like talk to the players, and if they're not comfortable with it, you can't hire the guy. And I would have no problem with players being uncomfortable for it because it would racially charge everything. Like
100%.
It's like kind of like, what is this guy thinking? Like you can't defend it. You can't.
No, you definitely would have to get the temperature of the locker room and make sure that they're okay with it. And if
it's a head coaching role, not this.
Well, if they're not okay with it, I don't think you can do it. But then again, like we said, I don't think they're okay with Dennis Allen, and they're sticking with him. So
different circumstances, obviously.
Well, that's definitely different circumstances for sure. So let's cross that boat when we get to cross that river when we get to it, and we'll jump in that boat, I guess I should say. But I don't know that that's going to happen. We've heard the grumblings and the rumors. Obviously, John Gruden has been around this team. If it happens, then then I'll have to give my opinion and tell you what I think. But right now, I don't know what I think, to be honest. And again, it would completely matter. I think with Larry's, like what Larry said, it would matter to me greatly with the people who would be working for him, not the people he'd be working for, with the people who he would be coaching. I would care what they think, and so we'd probably find out pretty early. If they were okay with it, I'd probably be okay with it. They weren't okay with it, I certainly wouldn't be okay with it.
Right. If they were okay with it, then yes. But it comes down to that. It certainly comes down to that for me. Like 1,000%, it comes down to that.
No question. All right, let's move on to the playoffs part of this. And you see the Super Bowl odds in the bottom left of the screen here. Let's dive in. We're going to start with the AFC, and I've got two slides here, one for the AFC and one for the NFC. And I think the AFC, the story there, and the interesting part of it is at least in two of these games, well, only in two because one of them is being played indoors, but the story in the Kansas City and the Buffalo game is going to be the weather. And I don't think the weather can be talked about enough because in Kansas City, I've seen this forecasted temperature go down all week long. It started off as going to be about 10 degrees, wind chill somewhere around 0-ish. And now it's even worse. It's like they're saying the temperature is going to be 0 or right below 0 with wind chills around minus 20 or something. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're from the north or your last name is Nanook. I mean, you can't. I mean, playing in that is a whole different animal.
I could tell you from experience, in a playoff scenario, it would be miserable. I'll just go back to the 2013 playoffs. Saints went up to Philadelphia. The night before the game, it was 0.
Ooh.
And me, Jeff, Catherine Terrell, we were in Philadelphia, going to a restaurant, going to a bar, whatever. And you were out in the cold and it was 0. complete misery. I don't know how you
even know
do
what
anything.
0 feels like.
I don't know how you do anything. We woke up the next day and it jumped to 20.
And it felt like
It
60.
felt balmy. I'm telling you, it is
Yes.
that much of a difference. So yeah, I don't care if you're Kansas City or what. I know you practice in cold, you used to cold. That's rigid
Yeah.
cold. Look, Miami's going to be at a easily disadvantage. They're beat up. Like it all points to a Kansas City win to me.
Look, I've been in Cincinnati when it was 6 degrees, and I think that's the coldest I've ever been in. And it wasn't windy; it was 6 degrees. But let me tell you, and I'm like, let's say what 6 degrees. Oh lordy, I mean, again, it wasn't windy. I had a park on, whatever it was, and I walked outside. I'm like, I'm glad I'm inside for this because I don't want any part of that 6 degrees. And I just don't know how. You talk about Kansas City. You're on Kansas City. Well, I mean, it's actually one of my best bets. I got them in a not teaser, a money line parlay. They just need to win. Kansas City and Buffalo. I got that as my best bet, money line parlay between those two. And look, I'd be surprised if not just because Miami is a team from the South, because a lot of those players are from the North. They played in cold before. You look at Tyreek Hill, he played in Kansas City, but Tua's a Hawaiian guy.
Right. That's what I was going to say.
So I mean,
Hawaii, Alabama,
Miami, exactly. I mean,
Miami.
I just don't think this is. I don't think you can avoid getting past it. Tua probably hasn't played in a lot of this stuff.
I don't know if
ever. And last year when they went to Buffalo and they had to play in that mess, he wasn't a quarterback and he was hurt. It was Skylar, whatever his name was.
Skylar Thompson.
Tyler Thompson. I mean, it was quarterback in that team. So he didn't even quarterback then. So I just don't think that enough can be put on. I love the under in this game, by the way, because I don't think Kansas City's been playing all that well.
No.
So I'm not expecting them to all of a sudden be this great team. I don't know that I want to run and bet against Kansas City at any point. A good chance they play Buffalo next week. But, man, I'll just say in this one alone, would it surprise you at all if the score was like 20-7?
No, because even in good conditions, Kansas City hadn't been putting up points a lot this year. Look, Patrick Mahomes, statistically speaking, is having the worst year of his career, and it's like significant. Part of it is definitely that he does not have pieces.
To drop the ball.
Those are more heightened. They don't like lead the league for Mahomes, so that's a heightened stat. But I mean, you throw the ball to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, you might as well throw it into the stands. Like he's not catching it. So they're going to have an overhaul with skill position players. I mean, that's got to happen. It's not all Mahomes, but he's trying to do too much. Like that's part of it too. But this one, I don't think you're going to have to try to do too much. And so, yeah, I think that of the games this week, it's probably, to me, that might be the easiest game to pick for me.
If you're picking by the spread, I think maybe you're right, because I think Kansas City wins this one easily. I think they win by 10 or more. I really do.
Either way.
Yeah. But like I said, I think the easiest pick, if you're just looking for a number and one number to bet, I like actually the under again. And it's only dropped from 44 to 43.5. I thought it would go lower. And actually tomorrow when they play on game day, I actually do think it's going to go lower. I think this will get down to 42 or 41.5. So if you like it, bet it now. It's definitely not going any higher. And the other weather game, we'll get to the first game last. Buffalo and the Steelers. I mean, this line's it was at 10 for a while. It started at 9.5. It went to 10. It's back at 9.5. Kind of begging you to bet on Buffalo here. This is another game where, some guys I were listening to were saying, remember back that Buffalo was at Buffalo and New England game when they played in that wind. They're supposed to have like a sustained 30-mile-an-hour wind. It could be a lot like that where, points are just going to be at a premium. I just don't see how, especially I don't see Pittsburgh scoring, but I don't think Buffalo's going to score a whole lot either. That's why I don't know that I would be running to the window to give away 9.5 points in a game where you might only have 14 or 18 points scored.
Right. Well, I could tell you, look, Pittsburgh's offense is playing markedly better since Mason Rudolph became the quarterback.
Question.
There's no doubt about that. But actually, one of the things that you quarterback aside, they're running the football now. Like they're actually running it really well. Najee Harris, Jalen Warren, like they are finally getting it done. So in this type of game, the fact that they have been doing that very well the last few weeks could shorten the game. And that spread, you're right. Like if we're talking in those terms, it could be, 7 points,
too much.
Yeah. So something like that. And then and then Buffalo hasn't been running it as well as they did the last couple of weeks when Cook went off and they were running wild, and that hasn't been the case. And Josh Allen, look, he's a risk taker. So, I feel like I'm with you in that. Buffalo, to me, is obvious favorite, but like it could be a close game. No TJ Watt is going to be an issue too.
Well, that's the reason why I ended up putting Buffalo in that money line teaser. Because if the Steelers can't rush the quarterback and put pressure on Josh Allen, even with super wind, he's going to find a way to get the ball even on short passes or whether he runs the ball and gets out of the pocket. So actually, and I don't know what the number is for this, but Josh Allen over rushing yards, because I do think he's going to run the ball a decent amount tomorrow. Again, he's not going to try to throw it deep all that much, and if he finds an opening with T.J. Watt going, he's going to take it. So if the over/under rushing total on Josh Allen is somewhere in the low to mid 30s, which is probably what it's going to be, I'd take the over on that. That might be a good player prop to take. But it's going to be snowy, supposedly, blizzard-like conditions. Again, it's going to be the wind more than I think it's going to be the snow. It's not going to be as cold in Buffalo as it is going to be in Kansas City, but it's going to be pretty cold there too. So two interesting weather games. And by the way, if you don't know this already, if you want to watch the Dolphins-Chiefs game, you're either going to have to go to a bar and watch it, or you're going to have to pay for Peacock, because that is the only way to watch that game. My son does it all the time when they have games like that and they're not on regular TV. He calls, how do I watch this game? What's your sign-on for Peacock? What's Peacock? So I'm just telling you, there's a lot of people out there that don't realize that game's on Peacock, and that's the only way to watch that game. So that's coming up. All right, the first game is interesting to me because I think the AFC is so wide open. I actually think the Browns are a good value. Right now they're like 30-1 to win the Super Bowl. Somewhere around 15 or 16-1 to win the AFC. And I'm not saying they're going to win the AFC. I am just saying that there is a good value right there on the Cleveland Browns, because I think they win this game. And if they have to go to Buffalo next week, to Baltimore next week, which is where they'd go if Kansas City and Buffalo both win, I think no team on this whole sheet right here matches up with Baltimore better than the Cleveland Browns.
I agree with the last point, but I picked the Texans.
Okay.
And I think CJ Stroud can deal with this and make things happen. I just, again, I'm going, me, I go quarterbacks a lot. Joe Flacco, he's had a nice run. His numbers, it's like he could throw for a bunch of picks and then all of a sudden throw for touchdowns, and then it levels out. But still, Joe Flacco is still Joe Flacco. I mean, I'm not.
I don't deny that.
That's the thing. I feel like Stroud is. We're seeing a guy who is going to be really good for a long time, and I don't think this moment's too big for him.
Here's what I likened that to yesterday, and the reason why I like Cleveland here. Rookie quarterbacks in general just don't play well in their first ever playoff game. They just don't. If you go back, I can't remember the time frame on it, but the last 44 games that a rookie or first-time playoff quarterback has played against an experienced quarterback, 17-31 against the spread. So, and I don't. You go back, and I liken C.J. Stroud's game here. I think it's gonna be a lot like his first game against Baltimore. Whereas to me, in sorts, it is his first game. And I get, Derek, be quiet. He's played 14, 15 games or however many he's played this year. Doesn't matter. When you play in the playoffs, it's a whole different animal. And I get the crowd's going to be rocking, but he had to put out so much energy last week. And when you start thinking about it all week long, you're thinking about it. It's playoffs. It's playoffs. It's playoffs. I think it's a different animal. And you got an experienced quarterback in Joe Flacco and the number one defense in the NFL. I hear where you're coming from, but I don't think C.J. Stroud has seen this before, and I really like Cleveland. Although I will say this, the public's all over Cleveland here, and I don't like that part of it.
You did not believe in the Texans last week, and I went with Stroud. Come on, get on.
No.
Get on board.
No, you're. That's not what I said. I said I didn't like picking that game, and I really didn't have a good feel either way. And the only reason why I was taking the Colts is because the public was all over Houston. That was literally the only reason why I was taking Houston. This week, I'm taking Cleveland despite the fact that the public is on Cleveland. So I hardly ever go with the public. I usually either stay away from a game, which is basically what I did last week when it came down to Texans Colts. I didn't play that game. And I think I might have put $20 on it just to have fun. But I stayed away from that game for the most part. This week, I'm betting with Aunt Mabel. and that says a lot. So I don't do that very often. I
I
really
don't
like
know,
Cleveland
public,
here.
schmublic, whatever. I go with
I well,
I
I know you
look
don't
at
look
them
at
in a different
numbers.
light.
I get it, but I'm not. If they got 70% on one side, I'm not going that way. Way more times than not. So, and that's the case here. Most of the people like Cleveland. I get your point, and I can be proven wrong. C.J. Stroud is definitely I have not given him enough credit all year long. There's no question about that. I just think that the playoffs is a different animal. We'll find out on Saturday. Again, that one's on NBC. You can just watch that with old rabbit ears. You're gonna have fun watching that one. So we'll see. Let's move on to the NFC. My question for you is San Francisco that much better than everyone else? Are we just watching these games for funsies? Can any of these 6 teams beat San Francisco?
Trying to think of the circumstances. Dallas would have to play them in everybody's got to play them in San
That's
Francisco.
right.
In any of those scenarios, no.
I
I
kind of
don't think
agree
so.
with you. I don't know. I don't know that. The only team I think there's 2 teams that I think would have a chance. The other 4 teams don't even have it, like zero, and I think almost zero chance. The only 2 teams I think that have a chance to beat San Francisco on this list are Dallas and the Rams. And look, I don't want to hear from you guys. People say, "Well, Dallas lost 40-7 or whatever the hell it was." That doesn't mean anything to me. Just because you play one game is never going to mean anything to me. But
there's a reason why the 49ers are still the Super Bowl favorite, because they're saying whatever, it was one game they lost to the Ravens.
Well, and yeah, exactly. But they're also the Super Bowl favorite at plus 220, which is a ridiculous number, by the way, at this point. That's super low. But everybody's betting on San Francisco. So usually that's another reason to stay away from them as well. But I do think Dallas and the Rams would have a chance. I'm not saying that Dallas and the Rams are going to get that far. We'll talk about the games as we go along here. I'm just saying, to me, those are the only 2 teams that match up well against San Francisco. I don't think any of the others do. Let's talk about Green Bay and Dallas first. 3:30 on Sunday on Fox. I thought it was weird how the NFL put the NFC games last and put the AFC games first. Maybe it just worked out that way, how they got picked or whatever, but I just thought that was super odd. I think this game is going to have a lot of points scored in it. Look, I know Jordan Love has played really well as of late, and my guess is you're gonna take Dallas in a slim margin, is my guess. But I just don't know how Green Bay's defense can handle Dallas at all, and I just think that Green Bay hasn't played anybody as of late. I know they beat Kansas City a few weeks ago, but this is a different animal. I think Dallas wins big here.
I agree with you.
Okay.
Look, CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks, they have been playing super well. Look, Jake Ferguson is a weapon. I know they haven't been running the ball a ton, but Dak's been playing awesome. I mean, and he really has. Like, there's a reason why he was a viable MVP candidate. Now, Jordan Love, you're right. He's been playing really well, basically for the last half of the season. Like, it's like he flipped the switch and all of a sudden, I just don't think that they can hang with Dallas yet. And so I think that's I think Dallas can win that one. I mean, maybe a couple touchdowns. Like, I just feel like,
I mean, they scored I think 30 points or more in every home game they've had this year.
Yeah, I just don't see, like, here's the thing. If Green Bay would be playing basically any other team that's in the NFC right now, I'd either pick them or say they have a good shot at pulling off an upset. This is not the team, though, that they can do that with.
I completely agree. That's going to be an interesting game. It'll be fun, though. I think it'll be a fun game. I think there'll be a lot of points scored. I actually like the over 50.5. I think it'll be fun. I just don't see Green Bay being able to keep up. But I will say this, for the future, I think this is going to do a lot for Green Bay going in the future, and Jordan Love's experience that he gets in this game. I love Matt LaFleur and what he's doing with this team. I think it's amazing. Once he got past Aaron Rodgers, he couldn't wait for Aaron Rodgers to get out of the building. This team has really got a bright future ahead of it. I love Green Bay going forward. All right, I'm going to save the Rams and Lions for last because that is the marquee matchup of the weekend. By the way, in that Dallas game, you talked about not being able to run the ball. I actually like the way Tony Pollard's been able to run the ball. One of my best bets of the week is over 61.5 rushing yards for Tony Pollard.
Well, lately, yes, it's finally kind of got going, but
Green Bay's got a terrible run defense. So
right. Well, I know fantasy football peeps probably want to claw their eyes out because they took Tony Pollard too early.
Yeah, well, I'm taking it you did that. All right.
I did not.
Okay.
I did not, thankfully.
Okay. All right. Let's save the middle game for last. I'm going to go to the Eagles and Tampa Bay here. And look, I get why people don't like Philadelphia. They haven't played well. They lost 5 out of their last 6 games, but for the same reasons you were talking about earlier. Tampa Bay doesn't even deserve to be in the playoffs, in my opinion. No one from the NFC South. I think the Eagles, I don't care how bad they've been playing, and I know how banged up they are. There's no way I'm not taking Philadelphia here.
I agree. I just don't see I know their defense has been really bad, and they don't even know who's calling the plays each week for defense. But Tampa's like they should be out. Like they should be like Jacksonville. Like they played their way out and they're in.
Right.
Like so that's the thing. Like I don't care how bad the defense has been for the Eagles. I mean, Jalen Hurts and they'll be able to
finger can look like this. I don't care what he can. His hand, it could look like Fred Sanford.
Just tush push the way down the field.
Exactly.
Go for it to go do a tush push on all 4 downs. Get like 2.5 yards of carry, and then that's all they got to do. But no, I can't go. I can't pick Tampa. That's not happening.
Well, with their 9-0 win last week for Tampa against a Carolina team that couldn't wait, they had their suitcases packed. They couldn't wait to get out of there and start moving home, back to their homes last week. So with that game, Tampa Bay moved up from the worst passing defense in the league to 30th. So now they're only third worst. And look, A.J. Brown's banged up. Devontae Smith's banged up. I don't care. Jalen Hurts, again, his hands look like this right now. I don't care. Doesn't matter. He's still going to be able to throw the ball against this terrible Tampa defense. I think it's a methodical, boring game that Tampa wins. I mean, Philadelphia wins something in the neighborhood of 23-14 or something boring like that.
I still think they could put up points. The Eagles could probably put up points because if they choose to, they might just run the ball. DeAndre Swift might have 150 yards rushing.
Okay, maybe so. All right, we saved the best for last. I think it's the best. It's the most intriguing game for sure. Matt Stafford's going back to Detroit to play his former team. Jared Goff's playing his former team and his former coach and Sean McVay against the Rams. Look, again, another game where the public's on the Rams, and I get why, and I hate betting with the public, but I think Dan Campbell has screwed a lot of things up going down the stretch here. I like the Rams, and actually I think the Rams could be one of those teams where it wouldn't surprise. I got a couple little futures on them. Not a lot, but I bet a little bit on them to make some real noise because I don't think anyone wants to play the Rams right now.
This is eerie, but I'm picking the Rams as well. What's the
my
matter
God.
with us? What is the matter with us?
6. For 5 out of 6, that's not good.
What is the matter with us? Yeah, look, Matt Stafford has actually played pretty well all season, but again, the back half of the season, I mean, he has been like the Matt Stafford of 2 years ago. Like he's been excellent, and he's not even leaning on Cooper Kupp. I mean, you have Puka Nacua, who, man, what a bad year to have an incredible rookie year when you got to go against Stroud. Like he'd be the hands down.
100%.
Puka would be hands down rookie of the year. And it's going to be like, so that's
you can't not pick C.J. Stroud. You have to.
Right. You have to. Like, there's no doubt. But like any other year, Puka wins this. So that's a bummer for him. But bright future for actually for the Rams, and he's probably going to keep Matt Stafford playing. He's like, all right, I got this young guy, and I got Cooper. I think I'm going to keep this. Yeah. No, I do think though that. Yeah, it's almost like the Lions hex. Like I think the Rams.
I think that's part of it.
Going to go in there. They're not going to be. A lot of those guys are not going to be intimidated by Detroit and their crowd. And Jared Goff could all of a sudden start throwing picks. It's happened. Like it's funny because you know how I do the rates every week, and Jared Goff is like his rates have been consistently like solid to good throughout each quarter of the season. But it all comes with a high and a low, and so it averages out. So this could easily be like a low, and then the Rams escape and pull off this upset.
Yeah, I just think that the Rams are that much better. And I will say this, even if they're not that much better, I think Sean McVay is that much better. I think there's a reason why he stayed around. I was surprised, frankly, that he stayed there. I thought he was leaving for sure because he had talked about leaving after winning the Super Bowl, and I thought he was leaving. But he saw something in this team. And I don't think enough can be – we haven't talked about him, but I don't think enough can be said about Kyron Williams and the life he's injected to this Rams offense as well. I mean, the Rams offense, you can talk about you can talk about Kansas City all you want. You can talk about Buffalo all you want. You can even talk about, I know the Ravens it's a different kind of offense. You talk about San Francisco, but you can make a case that the Rams have the best offense in the playoffs.
Well, the pieces are kind of healthy again, which is good. And then, you got Williams back. He's running the ball super well. Balka, sometimes he fumbles, so that's kind of an issue.
Yeah.
But Matt Stafford's playing comfortable, man. He's, like I said, he's playing like that guy he played a couple years ago.
Yes, he is.
And so I didn't expect that to happen this year. So that's a big kudos to him. But like I said, I think the Rams are certainly playing hot. Like if you look at any of these teams going into the playoffs, I would say the Rams. If there's anyone you don't want to play, you say the Browns in the AFC. I can get on board with that, even though I picked against them. But I do think though that the Rams are a team you do not want to run into, and they ran into a team that's probably best suited for them to pull off this win and maybe keep that momentum going.
And to make it more interesting, if Larry and I are right, if the Rams, Eagles, and Cowboys win next week in the divisional round, it would be Rams at San Francisco and Philadelphia at Dallas. How about that?
Fun. Both of those would be fun.
And it could be that and Kansas City at Buffalo and Cleveland at Baltimore. I don't know that you could put together if it happens like we basically predicted. We're split on the Cleveland-Houston game. But if it happens like that, I mean, I don't think you could get a better divisional round.
Cleveland and Baltimore would be a funner game than Houston-Baltimore. I saw
100%.
I agree with you. So for matchup sakes, I do hope that maybe I'm wrong with the Texans, and just for pure what I want to see and have these teams go at it. Those would be the matchups I'd like to see.
I'm just saying, if those 4 games come to fruition and that's what you have next week, obviously we're predicting, and that doesn't mean it's going to happen. Probably won't if that's actually what we're predicting. How often are we going to be right about 6 games or even 5 of 6 together? We have 5 of 6 that we're picking together with the chance that all 5 of 6 are right. But if it were to happen, man, that'd be a whole lot of fun. Philadelphia at Dallas, Rams at San Francisco, Cleveland at Baltimore. I'm looking forward to the possibility. Kansas City at Buffalo. All of those would be fun. So anyway, we'll see what happens. All right. Any final thoughts before we go off the air, Mr. Holder? We're kind of back into our regular. I don't know how it was for you guys, but we got the phone call about out of an abundance of caution. We just had 2 weeks off of school, and we had to take another day off of school because, oh God, we had some rain and some wind the other day.
Well, which was funny because that Friday before, there was a fire at the Algiers power substation, and the power went out.
That's right.
That's why I had to cut it short last week.
That's
so
right.
I was like, I had that, and then of course they're off Monday, and then who knows? It's going to be cold because I know you live on the North Shore. It's going to be colder next week. It might happen again.
It's supposed to be. They're forecasting 17 degrees for Mandeville, with some potential freezing rain overnight, Monday night into Tuesday morning. So I'm already know. We're off for Martin Luther King Day on Monday. I'm like 98% certain that the St. Tammany superintendent is going to call me with his robocall. Out of an abundance of caution, we're not going to go to school again. I mean,
my kid would love that because it is his birthday is Tuesday and my birthday is Tuesday.
Oh, well, happy birthday, Mr. Holder. Are you 39 again?
Man, I no, we're not playing that game. Too many gray hairs.
My wife does. My wife says the leprechaun visited her 29th birthday, and that she's still 29, which we've been together for 18 years. So you do the math. I mean, if she's 29, and we've been together
my wife
for 18 years.
is 4 months older than me, but so at graduation years, she's above me. But there's no doubt she looks younger than me. There's no doubt.
Wow.
So like zero doubt she looks younger than me. So that's good.
Oh, trying to get brownie points here in the Dattitude podcast. All right, we will talk to you, and hopefully we'll have those aforementioned divisional matchups we'll get to talk about, and I'm sure we'll find a way to bring up the black and gold some kind of way.
I'm sure there will be something from now to then that will be notable.
Of course there will. There always is with this freaking team. Let's just put it that way. All right, as I said and say here every Friday, when I'm done here, I'm going to go add my monologue and give you a little bit more of what I think because, again, you can't chop enough dead wood, right, in the winter. I mean, you need something to put in the fireplace. So wherever you get your podcast, search for Dattitude and you can find it, and you can talk to me and Larry next Friday here on Dattitude. Everyone have a great weekend. Enjoy the games.